really appreciate everyone joining us. I think everyone in northeastern Wisconsin has definitely been figuring out how we can be adjusting and what are the things that we can be doing, both for our companies and our community during these difficult times. And it's been great to see, some of the work that some of, the partner organizations for the NEWMA are doing right now. So just really excited to see that. Today for our presentation, we're excited to have Sure Controls provide some of their perspective, having been, a player in automation for quite a while. We have Terry, who's their owner, who's going to be joining us today from Greenville and providing an overview for the group. All right. Terry, can I assume that while you're talking, we'll generally have everyone go on to mute, and then if you do have a specific question, they could come off mute to ask that question if it makes sense. But generally, it makes it a little easier if we can all mute our microphones while you're talking.
Yeah, I was going to kind of ask how you wanted to facilitate that. So there is a chat, which is the little bubble that you see in your controls. So if you wanted to submit questions that way, go ahead, and we can then handle them at the end. But I'm very open to it being a fluid dialogue. Typically, I would never do a presentation where you just talk through the whole thing till the end. So if you do have something on one of the slides that you'd like to have a discussion on, I believe that's what's going to benefit all of us most. So I would agree that if all of us could put ourselves on mute, that would prevent any type of background noise and things from coming into the presentation.
Sounds good. Appreciate that. I will go and mute myself and then open up the chat window as well, and look forward to the presentation, Terry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. And thank you to everyone as part of the Industry 4.0 sub-team, and really I'm honored to have the time this afternoon. And I know we're all stressed and challenged with what we're working through, but I would have to say that here at Sure Controls, we're blessed with the technologies that we're using right now that's allowing us to take a meeting that we were going to all do in person and continue, the knowledge sharing and investment in time that I believe is going to allow for each one of us to independently figure out what's going to be a good way for us to invest in our businesses to continue to grow as we are managing through the current scenario. And the folks that are making those wise decisions are the ones that are going to come out of this a lot stronger. So again, my name is Terry Bry, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity. So we'll go ahead and get started. And really wanted to start off, I am a true cheesehead through and through. Cheer for the Packers, grew up on a dairy farm, and really am passionate, and the team at Sure Controls is passionate about keeping Wisconsin manufacturers competitive through the use of automation and technologies that allow for us to be consumers of local goods that are manufactured by great companies that are on this call. And really what we look to cover today is just a brief introduction on Sure Controls, trends in technology, Industry 4.0 and robotics, and I'll cover how that gets into tying to what I believe is a successful recovery. I think these technologies and the advancements in how quickly some at least remote working technologies have been deployed can definitely benefit all of us long term in how we take what we're learning and don't revert back to whatever normal was before we got into the current pandemic, because I highly anticipate that our new normal is going to be different than it had been just a short couple months ago. And then we'll cover some automation failures and successes. So we truly believe that the way to learn and grow is through both our successes and, in a lot of cases, more importantly, our failures. Being able to fail forward, fail often, fail early, those are all philosophies that we believe in here at Sure Controls, and we've got ways that we mitigate those risks earlier so that we can ensure that a smile is delivered to our customers, because that's our definition of success. And then the last point on here is that if you do have questions, as Jill mentioned, feel free to unmute yourself and ask them throughout the presentation. Otherwise, just simply submit it on the chat feature. And this is just a screenshot of that. And as I see those, I will work to incorporate those in either during or after the presentation. And again, I really look for this to be an interactive dialogue. To me, that's how we're all going to benefit from the sharing of knowledge and information. A little bit about Sure Controls. We were founded in 1984. We are privately held, located in Greenville, Wisconsin, right across from the Appleton Airport. We are one Sure team of experts, so we really invest heavily in technology, and in order to be in technology, we are heavily invested in training the team here to ensure that we can successfully deploy that. Our mission is really to delight our customers with design foresight, product leadership, and unequaled responsiveness. The services and solutions that we offer are custom engineered integrated solutions, and that can be full control system upgrades for a machine that's been running for 50 or more years to a brand new automation process that is being deployed into a customer's facility. So it can start with a clean sheet, or it can work off of concepts and systems that we have collaboratively developed with our customers. That tends to be what we see as the most successful solution, is that truly collaborative approach. We do product distribution for specific product lines supporting our core competencies. We are a UL panel design and production facility. Plant intelligence solutions is really our word for Industry 4.0, or the Internet of Things. We've left it as plant intelligence because we have been deploying those types of systems for the better part of 10 to 15 years. We look at it maybe a little different than others in trying to make sure it's scalable for each one of our customers, because one organization can deploy a very expensive, highly analytical solution, where a small manufacturer or customer may really only need to know what's going on a line, and that can be done, for a few $1,000s. And we want to make sure that we're able to deploy those types of solutions that match with what the customer's needs are. And really, we've got decades of knowledge working on equipment in production facilities. So really, our team that operates on those solutions, we like to say they wear a steel-toed shoe on one foot and a sandal with socks on the other foot. So they can speak IT and understand that, but they also understand the workings of a PLC and the control systems on the floor. We do have field services, and really wanted to just highlight that we're doing a number of remote field services, especially in a time like now. We've had multiple engineers on line with customers' equipment, and that's not just us dialing into customers' equipment. If it gets beyond things that we may be able to solve, we're able to remote in specialists from around the world to help solve issues in plants. The reality that we don't need to be at work to do our jobs is very applicable even in the service side. One of our advanced design engineers this week shared with me that he's capable of doing more service quicker when he's not in a plant, primarily because to take a phone call, you have to leave the plant floor because it's too noisy, and it's just things that I hadn't thought of before. He indicated that what took 4 hours dialed in remotely to the line could have taken a day or more if he were in the field doing the same work. So that's just interesting things that we're learning as we're all going through this. Of course, we are on site, still continue to service our customers on site right now. We provide training and repair services, and then of course we're going to be hitting on the robotics and motion control side. So we'll really be diving into the correlation of the Industry 4.0 and robotics as we get into the presentation further. Our core competencies align with web handling, so that's really the production of a product that goes through a continuous motion process in a web. So that can be plastic, paper, metal, for some examples. We get into thermal and fluid process control. That is, again, a lot of plastics, but you have those in metal production and a number of other industries, medical, food and bev, plant intelligence, that can cross almost any market. We covered that earlier. Sure Motion is our robotics and discrete motion control part of our business. And then safety. So we've got the ability to deploy both the electrical safety control systems as well as mechanical safety systems in guarding to really make sure that we're not only deploying the automation, but making sure that it's being done in a safe fashion. So now we'll get into the trends in technology. So I really have to start with where I grew up. So I grew up on a dairy farm, and if anyone on this call had that type of a background, by no choice of your own, you got to learn what it meant to work, and you got to learn what it meant to work at an early age. So I baled hay, I drove tractors, and I truly enjoyed everything that I learned. I learned how to take a lot of things apart, but I also quickly learned that it's a lot of work to do everything manually. And within the manufacturing environment, agriculture is, a different version of manufacturing. And I quickly realized when I left for college that I got automated in the process. And since there weren't enough of us on the farm to do all that manual labor, we got automated through the use of skid loaders, which I love driving a skid loader, especially when it can pick up the equivalent of 100 square bales all at once. And really the key here is that in a lot of instances for a very long period of time, we've been collaboratively working with machines that are automating a lot of different things around us, whether it's, in the automotive industry, the agricultural industry, and the technology in the agricultural industry has autonomous tractors and things that, are very advanced because it's very difficult for them to find people to do the manual labor that's required in that industry. And we'll get into collaborative robots as the technology, and wanted to just share that we're all exposed to collaborative technologies every day. So every time you get in your car, your window is a electromechanical collaborative system that's engineered to be safe so that your loved ones and yourself don't hurt themselves should they roll up the window and have one of their appendages in the way. So just an example of how we are around technologies all over that make sure that we are comfortable with that. Same goes for if every one of us has been on an elevator, I'm sure, and I'm guessing if you have kids, you've probably had one of them stick their hand in the door to see if it would open back up. That is no different than the window on your car. It's designed inherently safe to protect from someone being harmed. Again, a collaborative engineered system that is going to keep the operators safe. Some of the challenges that we all face, I drew out different words that were submitted in the questionnaire that was sent out, and some of the ones that were really highlighted was people dependent, adequate workforce, quality, reshore, onshore, rising cost, scarcity of skilled human resources. And I'm not going to read all of them, but I draw that out to just highlight, these were the actual supplements or the submittals from that survey. So again, I'm not going to read all of this, but it's on a lot of our minds as to how do we manage the challenges that are in front of us. And this doesn't even put in place the pandemic related challenges. That's going to roll out a whole different level of things that we have to adapt and manage to. And the one thing that is amazing is how quickly we have adapted. And the exciting part is there's going to be lots of innovation that comes out of this if we're applying ourselves in that type of a fashion. So I thank everyone for providing this, and really resonate and can share that the manufacturing facilities we visit throughout the state and around the country and world are challenged with these same issues, and look forward to sharing how we believe we can help solve them. So I would throw this out as a number to see if anyone could put in the chat what they believe this number may represent. So I don't have any takers, so I will I'll give you a little hint. What I did was Google everyone that is all the different companies that are part of the Industry 4.0 sub-team, and there are currently 4,547 open job positions, and that is currently through a pandemic. Now, maybe some of these still need to be updated, but I know even through the website of the New Manufacturing Alliance, there are companies on this subcommittee that are having an even higher demand than they had before, and labor shortage was a huge challenge before that. So, the reality is that there's more people retiring than entering the workforce, and that gap is resulting in us needing to come up with ways that we can do more with less, and that's going to also allow us to stay competitive here locally. And the exciting part about being in Wisconsin is we've got a very hardworking culture that is very innovative, and I'm excited to see the things that we come up with and deploy, and that's why there's such a very dense population of manufacturing here in the state. The one that I did carve out was Microsoft. I saw that they were on there and figured it wasn't fair to lump their amount of hires and open positions into it. But they've got over 3,500 active open positions to fill, and it just shows that because we are continuing to add technology to what we do, the demand for those skilled resources and folks that support that continue to go up in our facilities and at the manufacturers. So it's really a challenge that we struggle with, and I'm sure nearly everyone on this call struggles with, based on a few hours of research looking at your websites at which jobs were posted. Now I wanted to transition into the Industry 4.0 and robotics, and really share what it means to me. And by no means do I claim to be an Industry 4.0 expert, because in my opinion, I believe that it is the next industrial revolution, and I believe we're all learning what that means. What I can share is 20 years ago, early in my career, I was part of a predictive diagnostics team, very, very dedicated to analyzing fast Fourier transform frequencies off of vibrations in fans, blowers, and motors that predicted when things would fault out, and they built algorithms into being able to know when those faults were occurring. So I was doing all that work manually, and they deployed algorithms that started being able to analyze that data without having a person involved. So artificial intelligence and machine learning, that's really what they were doing. And that was at Johnson Controls, a manufacturer headquartered here in Wisconsin. And that group has evolved tremendously to where they're analyzing the things going on in data centers and core infrastructure that's mission critical to stay running all the time. So really, Industry 4.0 has a lot of different prongs. I believe that this image shares that very well. I think that robotics ties into additive manufacturing and machine learning. You can deploy a robot into a system and extract information from that process that you may not have had, throughput count on or different things prior to deploying that type of technology. Big data analytics, cloud computing, those are all technologies that have evolved over the last 10 years that allow for you to really manage a lot more data and turn it into more intelligent information that can be shared with better managing our businesses. So really, I believe we're all learning in this together, and it's clearly becoming a much bigger topic of how to manage all that data and the risks that we run in security breaches, and there's whole new industries forming to help support that. So I'm not going to dive into Industry 4.0 a lot, but I felt this was a good graphic that has a lot of the prongs and really where the robotics element ties into it. So we work with a end-of-arm tooling partner called Robotics out of Canada, and they've really done a campaign here during the COVID-19 pandemic to really focus on what they could do to help deploy collaborative robots to help keep manufacturing in the times where it's challenging to get operators that may not want to come to work or needing to separate folks from coming in to the facility. So they've got a campaign that if you work with them or partners that they would come up with an assessment of different applications within your facility and help determine not fully automating something, but looking at how do you automate, say, 80% of a process so you can start getting the return and get to where you're deploying that technology and recognize that technology is flexible and it's intelligent. So it's not going to have to be purposed specifically into a process. You can then redeploy it into the future without having to fully recapitalize buying new equipment. So this is some of the technology that is very important and useful. And when you deploy this, you can dial into the equipment and you can extract information from the process and the equipment that's running the robots and in feeds and out feeds from the system to know, are you creating bottlenecks in other places within your facility? You can set a pace for a line if you incorporate, a robot that is operating at a specific piece part pace. An operator may be able to work faster in a burst, but not sustainably. So a lot of companies have added automation and different types of technologies that help them better manage the consistent workflow through their facility. And then just wanted to kind of throw this out there. I thought this graphic was very relevant, to just ask the question, what will the new normal work cell look like in the next 6 months, 12 months, 3 years? There are lights out operations that exist, but I'd say that's more of an outlier than a norm. Will social distancing be a new norm? And the key is that there is automation technology that exists that could solve these challenges if they become more of a long-term issue. You know, this is a mobile robot that can transport product to and from an operator. This is a mobile robot with a collaborative robot that can not only transport, but it can move from, you know, job to job and do a task in that process. And then all this is being drawn into a place that you wouldn't have to be at the facility to see what's going on. So this is basically the equivalent of all of us sitting at our computers outside of the building, knowing exactly what's going on within the facility. So again, tying the robots to you know, plant intelligence or industry 4.0 so that we can better manage our businesses. Another technology that we don't participate in but does exist is there are companies that have started that are hiring out robots temporarily. So, you know, think of a temp agency, but you effectively are renting a robot as your peaks and demands are out there. This may not be for everyone, but it's no longer a capital investment. It would be more of a monthly expense. So since these technologies have a quicker return on investment, you're starting to see different business models being brought to market to allow for more people to take advantage of it. This slide here does have a lot of information, but really in 1960 is when the first robot was introduced to the market. From 1960 to 2015, roughly 10% of jobs in manufacturing were automated. Now, that's not to say that by automating, it created more jobs. There are a number of organizations. One we belong to is the Robotic Industry Association that indicates that for every robot deployed, there's 5 to 6 jobs created. But it does say that, you know, basically over the course of a lot of years, 10% of tasks were automated, and there's projections that from 2015 to 2025, they're looking at 150% increase in automatable tasks. And a lot of that is automation moving outside of the auto industry, and a lot of that is because of the new technologies that are not requiring the significant investment that it had required in the past. So some of the things that we'll get into now is in the past, say from 1960 until the year 2015, industrial robots were the primary robotic automation deployed. All of them needed to be caged because by themselves they are not designed safe. They're designed to do the same thing over and over for a very long period of time. They are expensive and it's fixed. And what I mean by fixed is that they you can't redeploy those systems. They're designed to run, you know, one model year of car, for example, and when that car is no longer produced, a lot of that equipment is sold off and scrapped, and they need to reinvest in retooling the whole manufacturing facility. There are new technologies now that allow you to take investments that you've made and redeploy it. And we like to term that within Sure Controls as flexible automation. So we'll get into now a little bit of what is a collaborative robot. So these are just a couple videos. Precise Automation is a manufacturer out of Fremont, California, so US manufacturer, which they produce the fastest and safest collaborative robots on the market. you're also able to mount it on a linear rail, so you could manage multiple operations with a single robot. So this video just shows how it's designed to work very closely with an operator and not harm them. So can't handle high payload. So if it's a high payload operation, a technology like this is not the right fit. And if it has to be extremely high speed, again, this is not a technology that is the right fit. You would now be leaning more towards fixed automation, whether that's an industrial robot or custom designed automation. And here you can see the ease of being able to program a collaborative robot where they set it in a train mode, and you can just move it to the different locations that the operator wants the robot to move back and forth from, and then they record that position, hit start, and it's able to run that task. So these technologies that are able to do some very repeatable, high precision tasks are able to be done without the need to have the same level of advanced automation engineer that you may need to deploy a collaborative system like the one on the right. So the one on the right here, this is an industrial robotic arm, but if you combine it with the right safety features, you notice the robot slow down as the operator moved closer and closer to the interaction of the robot. So this is still a collaborative deployment, but you need to combine safety with the industrial robot, and the robot has to stop based on safety standards. So this is a safety rated monitored stop, and the one on the left is a power and force limited safety deployment. So in this video, you're just going to see the operator interact a couple different times, and you'll see the technology can't be deployed even dependent on how quickly the operator tries to interact with the system. So here you're going to see when he moved out, it's moving full speed again, and now he's going to try and run into the work cell. And just because you're moving quicker as an operator doesn't mean that the safety is going to be defeated. And all of this is defined by specifications written by OSHA and the Robotic Industrial Association. So there's ISO standards and RIA standards that define how you need to safely deploy automation and robotics, as well as the types of risk assessments that need to be made, whether it's industrial or collaborative. You have to do a risk assessment. This slide here highlights that there is a lot of studies that have been done to determine what it means to be collaborative. So if you've ever, put your hand in an elevator door or, closed your fingers in a car window, you feel that. So just because it's collaborative does not mean that you're not going to feel the robot coming in contact with you. So you will feel it. And, there were volunteers that just hopefully were paid to be studied on, okay, how much pressure can I apply to your chest, to your temple, to different parts of your body to come up with the safety standards. So a lot of work and a lot of studies have been done to determine what is deemed a safe collaborative deployment, and you need to ensure that you're doing the right due diligence, whether that's yourself deploying it or working with a partner that is deploying it. It is required to have risk assessments completed. So, where do cobots deliver smiles? You'll notice here, this is an assist. So this cobot is helping this operator hold a very heavy tool. So what that is doing is taking the strain off your shoulder. So it's preventing, a potential workman's comp. Here it's doing a dull task that if an operator were doing that every day, there may be quality issues or, strain work-related issues. And gluing. So there's lots of different deployments that collaborative robots have been deployed in. Typically, they are faster to deploy, easier to use. We covered that in the earlier video. They're flexible and can be redeployed. You can add vision systems and other technologies that even enhance what they have designed into them. They're safer by design, but still you need to do the due diligence as you're deploying them. If you put a knife in the end of a collaborative robot, obviously that is not a safe deployment. Smaller footprint, when you don't have these large heavy payloads and you don't need guarding around the system, you typically can fit that into a smaller footprint, so you save real estate within your facility. And last but not least, and possibly more important, is in a lot of cases we've found that there is a faster return on investment, and we pride ourselves and recognize that you do not get that return on investment unless it is fully deployed and operating in production. And that's really, you know, important, is that as you're investing in these technologies that you are getting it deployed, because that's where you are getting the return on the investment. So just comparing, say, an industrial robotic deployment, here you have, you know, robot peripherals being panels, guarding, end of arm tooling, system engineering to bring all that together, and project management. A basic collaborative robot, you're still going to have the robot cost. Your peripherals will come down, your system engineering will come down, project engineering, project management will come down. And then smart collaborative robot would be, you know, a robot that's combining a smart vision system or a flexible in-feed system, things that allow that to be quickly deployed and quickly redeployed, allow for you to see returns that we've had customers capitalize on in, you know, months versus years. But again, all of that's dependent on, you know, how many shifts, and we've got many different ways that we work with customers to analyze that, and everyone has their own way of determining, you know, what return on investment makes sense for their business. Something that always comes up is, you know, are robots and automation for every application? The answer to that is absolutely not. And I don't know if there are any Tesla fans or owners in the audience, but Elon Musk, I give him a lot of credit for setting very aggressive goals and pushing the boundaries in a lot of different industries, and he's proven himself to be very successful. As he went to deploy his Model 3 production lines, he was looking to ramp very fast and automate as much as possible, and it really did not go well. In human dexterity and a lot of things in the production of a car and in the production of probably everyone's products on this call are required. To get to a lights out opportunity is very difficult. It has to be engineered to the design of your products, and typically isn't a realistic goal. So the net result, if you followed any of that, was, you know, a makeshift manufacturing plant that was fully staffed by people to get production up and running, because they couldn't get the automation to all be working together and deliver on what was needed for throughput and commitments to the market and to their shareholders. So it was interesting to see that, especially being passionate about automation, but there are things that you need to make sure you're taking into consideration. And when you try and tie your whole facility full of automation together and bring that all online at once, it's very challenging to do that. So here's a deployment that has been done here locally in Wisconsin. So this is down in New Berlin. So just wanted to share this success story of a blow molder that's had a successful deployment.
We've been looking for a collaborative robot solution for quite some time, mainly due to the labor shortage that most manufacturers are seeing today. The collaborative robot allowed us to deliver a more flexible solution, and it's a lot more redeployable. The application that we really went for here was on our offline label application, to where we could get better consistency, more reliability, and really set the pace to produce to our schedule. We didn't have to worry about having to shut the line down due to labor inconsistencies. So it's been a great opportunity for us and worked very well so far.
We went forward with using the Omron TM robot for some of the technical advantages. We also felt that higher payload and reach was a need that the market was looking for and asking. And really the technical team felt the programming capabilities within the product were an important piece.
So we partnered with Sure Controls on the deployment of this, and they were a great partner for a variety of reasons. Project management was one, their technical expertise. They provide a lot of extra training for us. They really help sell us on the technology, how it can benefit us. We've been looking for a collab.
So that's just one of the companies that we were fortunate to work with and was willing to share their story. And really what they had was a offline manufacturing process that they couldn't keep staffed. So when they'd have folks call in, that was the part of their facility that would get shut down, and then they'd have to work overtime, and it was for labeling of blow molded bottles. And you know, that's an industry that when you end up needing to put additional labor into the production process, it results in impacting your bottom line. This video here, just wanted to share, you know, it's got a number of different technologies in it, and all of these technologies were tied together to demonstrate them working, and highlights that there's technologies to handle very, very small parts. So this is an area that we work in as well, more for the medical and electronics industry. This is a Delta robot that has 2 micron repeatability. So the parts being handled here are nano blocks. So that's the smallest Lego that we could find. And we work with parts that are much, much smaller than that, but it's a flexible in-feed that feeds these parts in, and then the flash of light there is a vision system that's telling the robot where to go. And the flexibility is built into this in-feed system. So you could load in different parts than this nano block, and with programming and retooling at the end of that robot, be able to run a completely different part on the same system. Again, that would be the case here with this robot. It's a 6-axis robot from a manufacturer out of Canada, Mechademic, where you can hold that robot in the palm of your hand. So obviously it doesn't work for every application, but for highly precise applications that you need to fit into a small footprint, it works very well and can do applications that, you know, very few other technologies on the market are able to do. And you can redeploy these by simply redesigning the tooling and redoing programming in the robot. What it's going to do then is pass along the assembled nano blocks to another flexible feeder from our partner Asrel out of Switzerland. And if you've ever been in a manufacturing facility that has those really loud bowl, they call them bowl feeders, that's what this technology is replacing, because bowl feeders are very noisy, they jam, they have lots of issues, and you can change out this tray, and you can change what parts can be managed by simply reprogramming the system and retooling the product that's picking up the part. So in this case, it's a collaborative robot that's picking that up. So that can be retooled inexpensively, the end of arm tooling, and then reprogram the in-feed or out-feed, as it's both an in-feed and out-feed in this example, and redeploy all of these technologies without having to buy all new systems. So just examples of how, you know, flexibility can be built into automation, giving you options as you're making that investment, not to only use it in the current ROI calculation and capital investment, but in future investments that you may get from different customer demands, changing product mix, and things of that nature. And then we'll end getting back to kind of the roots of where we started. You'll notice the Amish Buggy up here. So we deployed a multi-axis, in fact, an 18-axis electromechanical, fully automated system for cheese brining. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that, that's the process of soaking large blocks of cheese in the production process to allow it to soak in the salt water. What that does is it adds that great salty flavor that we all like, and it also adds weight, so that as we are paying for cheese by the pound, we're paying more for not just cheese, but also the weight that's added in the brining process. So this was a deployment that was done in Pennsylvania, and it was, I believe, owned and operated by Amish. So the interesting thing is that, you know, they're investing in fully automating systems like this, and you know, this is what they're doing to stay relevant in the manufacturing environment, even when in their personal lives there's very little, if any, technology being utilized. So it's really interesting to see that the technology is being utilized and deployed by lots of different folks, regardless of what their background is, or you know, how they may use technology in their personal lives. So it was very unique opportunity and interesting. And one of our engineers was actually online with this system remotely this week, troubleshooting and updating some of the logic inside of the PLC that's controlling the whole system. So again, being able to remote in and help service the customer where it's much more cost effective, as well as in a pandemic, much safer for both them and the team that's dialing in. So mention that we define success as delivering a smile. This is something that I tried convincing my father to invest in when I was much younger, and being a conservative farmer, he never moved forward with that. But in the agricultural industry, they have and have had for, you know, 15, possibly 20 plus years, robotic milkers. And I have to believe that's why that gentleman is smiling that much, because he doesn't have to get up every morning and be home every night to milk the cows. So hopefully been able to share some trends in technology and cover, you know, at least my perspective and the folks here at Sure Control's perspective on Industry 4.0, how that ties into robotics. And really we listened to a economic forecast from a group that we listen to. It's the ITR group out of New England that indicated that automation is going to be a big part of, you know, our recovery out of the recession that we're in. And a lot of that has to do with us being able to build, produce, and manufacture product here locally, and to do it cost effectively. You know, and with the labor shortage that we're challenged with, we're going to have to come up with ways to manage that. We covered the automation failures and successes, and you know, really kind of went into some of the flexible automation. And if you're looking at automation, I would highly encourage, you know, thinking through, you know, how may you use that technology, not only in what you're looking to automate at that task, but in potential future tasks, as that would be a long-term investment that could be redeployed in the future. So That's really everything that I had to cover. I again really thank everyone for their time today. I'm looking at the chat and seeing that there's not any chats up there, but what I can do is unmute everyone, or if you do have questions, I'll be happy to stay on the line and answer those for as long as you'd like.
Yeah, we actually have some additional business for the Industry 4.0 team. But if anyone does have, let's quickly see. Are there any other questions for Tim at this point? For Terry at this point? Well, great. Well, we appreciate. Thank you, Terry, for the time that you kind of got through that with us. I think when we think about the cobots, especially, it's not the it's not the full-blown automation that sometimes scares people when you see that full-blown automation, but the cobots really potentially have an interesting role to be played, I think, for companies going forward. So, folks were just asking, what's the best way to follow up with you, Terry, too?
So what I have my email address here. So I would be happy to respond to any emails. And then what I can do, Jill and Ann, is I had mentioned that this is being recorded, so I will send a link to the recording to Ann, and then that'll allow for you guys to send that to everyone with my contact information, and would be happy to field any questions or work with anyone. Ann did mention that there was thoughts of getting 6 to 8 companies together to collaboratively work to deploy a robot and use that as a learning exercise. That's something that Sure Controls would definitely be interested in participating in. So if that does come together, I would be excited to work with folks on this call. So email, and I'll also follow up with an email to Ann that can be forwarded to all attendees.